lot in the Sicha. Echad Yon the Gulas Mitzrayim, one of the matters and the concepts of the redemption, Hamudgish B'Torah, that's emphasized in Torah is.
Maya, can you tell me why this doesn't work? Sorry.
Just mute yourself.
Let's see. The fact that the redemption of Nisan from Mitzrayim took place through Moshe and Aaron together. Like was already told when Hashem commanded the Yidden, or Hashem commanded while they were still in Mitzrayim and Golus. That Hashem spoke to Moshe and Aaron of Bnei Yisrael, and he commanded them to the Bnei Yisrael, that they should take them out. So in other words, he told both Moshe and Aaron, he said they would be the ones taking them out. In Kol brought in the Korban Pesach Mitzrayim L'Doros. Yitzias Mitzrayim L'Moshe v'Aaron b'Yachad. And afterwards, at the actual time, not just earlier, but at the actual time of going out of Mitzrayim, so when the Eibishter commanded the whole parsha of Acharon, with all the details of the Korban Pesach, the details both involving what the Yidden would do to Korban Pesach, how they would do it while they were there in Mitzrayim, and all the details of the Korban Pesach, how they would do it for all generations. And he was telling them about going out of Mitzrayim. He told it to Moshe and Aaron together. Like it says right away at the beginning, by Yom Hashem al Moshe al Aaron, and Hashem spoke to Moshe and Aaron, Achodesh Hazeh Lochem, this month for you, Dabra Kol Das Bnei Yisrael Gomer, speak in plural. Both you speak to Kol Das Bnei Yisrael. Ad Kedei Kach, to such a degree, does Aaron play a role? Torah Magdima Lefamim Aaron Lefnei Moshe V'Negeli Tzias Mitzrayim. That the Torah sometimes even places Aaron before Moshe when it comes to going out of Mitzrayim. Who Aaron and Moshe Asher Hashem Lam Mitzias Bnei Yisrael Met Mitzrayim Al Tzavosim. It says this is Aaron and Moshe that Hashem told them take out the Bnei Yisrael from the land of Mitzrayim upon their hosts. So we see that even Aaron takes precedence over Moshe. We need to understand what Derish has, but it needs explanation. Why was the going out of Mitzrayim specifically through Moshe and Aaron and not through Moshe alone? Since, especially since the Torah itself relates, how Hashem chose specifically Moshe to be the Redeemer. And the whole argument that Moshe Rabbeinu had over there by the Har Chodev, he's told him, I don't want to go, send someone else, send Aaron. And Hashem told him that Aaron will just be your translator. Aaron will also be Neviyecha, your speaker. He will be your mouthpiece. But you are the one that's supposed to take them out. So why, if Moshe Rabbeinu was the one that was redeeming them, why was Moshe and Aaron combined in the avodah of taking them out of Mitzrayim? We need to understand what is the lesson from the fact that they're going out of Mitzrayim through Moshe and Aaron. He called Teva B'Torah Nitzas Chol Adoros. Every word in Chumash, every word in Torah is an everlasting lesson for all generations. How much more so the story of going out of Mitzrayim in Torah, how much more of an everlasting lesson is that? It's Mishnah, like the Mishnah commands, every single generation and every single day, a person needs to envision themselves as if today they left Mitzrayim. And the remembering of going out of Mitzrayim has to be twice a day. It has to be Krishma in the morning and Krishma in the evening. We say by Hashem, the whole parsha that mentions Yitzias Mitzrayim. And it moves, so it's understood. We need to derive a lesson every generation and every day. Loidak and close, it's just Mitzrayim, not just from the general going on in Mitzrayim, but rather from all the details of the story of Yitzias Mitzrayim and Torah, including also the fact that the redemption was through Moshe and Aaron. So that's the question. First of all, why was it that way? And secondly, what is the lesson that we derive? So we're going to skip around a little bit. The Rebbe is going to connect it with a story of Parsha Shemini, which is not our Parsha. We're going to go into a concept a little bit further in the Sicha. Okay, let's skip over to this page first of all. Gemara Emeres, just under Gimel. The Gemara says, Al Tadur v'ir the Reish Masa Asya Talmud Chacham. Do not live in a city that the mayor is a Talmud Chacham. What's the reason that you can't have a Talmud Chacham for a mayor? Mishum the Aski b'tzorcheim, because they're involved in their needs. They cannot involve themselves in matters of the congregation, the community. So the Rebbe is going to analyze exactly what the Gemara is saying. When you understand, if you're not going to choose a Talmud Chacham as a mayor, who then will they choose as a mayor? And Amar is someone that's totally ignorant. Base. How is it possible? The Talmud Chacham is involved in the Torah of truth, in the Torah of life, which is a lesson in life, and is a yazik ban hagas ha'ir, will that somehow cause damage in the running of the city. We can say the explanation. This is moving the pashat. It's self-understood, and it's obvious. That we're prohibited from choosing an Amaharet to be the mayor. Skip the brackets. Surely one needs to choose a wise person that knows to study Torah. And even someone that has ordination, he can be a Rav. So that he should be able to run the city by the directives and by the halachas and dinim of the Torah. In this itself, there has to be such a type of chacham. His main preoccupation is to evaluate the needs of the city. And according to his evaluation and understanding the needs of the city, to search out in Torah the lessons and directives that are appropriate for such a particular city, because he knows what the city needs. And not that his main thing is to study Torah, not the way they are appropriate for the needs of the city. It'll come on, as the Rebbe is going to speak about at length later on. So sometimes they say this is the difference between a Rosh Hashiva and a Rav. A Rosh Hashiva is in their ivory tower. They're learning the topics of Torah. They're learning concepts in Torah, but they're not down to earth to see what people in the world really need. A Rav, on the other hand, he is well versed in Torah. At the same time, he is interacting with the city and knows exactly what the city needs. And the Rebbe in the next part is going to go into a lot of details about Torah's relationship with the world and Torah being above the world. Um, so he says, so let's skip over to the next page. We're going to make this, like I said, a little bit shorter. So on the bottom of beneath hay, on the bottom corner, to be able to evaluate according to the Torah the needs of the city, could be in two types of ways. Aleph, a person can look into the Torah and then decide what are the needs of the city according to the Torah. Then Beis, another situation is we evaluate the needs that the inhabitants of the city need based on where they are at now. Moving by from Torah, obviously in the way it's permitted according to Torah, but not necessarily in the most idealistic view of Torah. Therefore, one needs to ascertain in Torah to be able to find the correct directives that are appropriate for the city and the situation the way they are at now, not the ideal state. Both of these approaches are correct according to Torah. The difference is only concerning what level we are speaking about. A chacham that's in such a level that from the Torah he knows what the needs of the city is. He evaluates the people of the city according to his level. Dargas HaTorah, the level of the Torah on its own. First of all, before he evaluates what the level is, the way Torah would hope their level to be at, but he first evaluates the needs of the people needed on their level. He takes in consideration the levels of the people of the city. Then the permitted way, according to Torah, did not yet reach the most highest level and the ideal situation. They have their needs that are measured and limited according to their nature and their state. Therefore, it's necessary to give them, according to Torah, these needs. And we have this, another example is, you could have a Rav of a city in Yerushalayim, or you could have a Rav that's out in the city and paskening dinim for a person, for people that are out in the Chabad setting. So both of them are going to direct their congregations to do everything only according to halakha. But when you're dealing in a Chabad situation, you might have to find areas in halakha that they are able to do or they should be doing, which is not necessarily the level of the ideal, because he's got to take into consideration where they're at, where they're coming from. Concerning this, the Gemara says, "Al tadur be'ir dereish masa asi." Do not live in a city that the mayor is a Talmid Chacham. Rosh ha'ir tzarich liyas Chacham kazeh. The mayor has to be such a type of Chacham sheyachol lirois olaharich tzarich ha'ir. He could see and evaluate the needs of the city. Skip the parentheses. But pashtus, in the simple sense, lefi tzarcheim aprotim da anshi irzu beheter. According to the individual needs of the members of the city, the way it's permitted according to halacha. And according to their needs, where they're holding at, you have to tell them the directives of the Torah. As opposed to a Talmid Chacham that is main involvement in the study of Torah. Skip the parentheses. Still in all, even though that from the Torah, which is the Torah of life, he can know what are the needs of the Torah, the people of the city, according to Torah. Who from the level of his perspective. So these are the true needs of the city, also according to halacha, but avor mishu badar gosei. This is only for someone that's on the level of Talmid Chacham. Aber mit Kiven, she's a lav dafke be'erech l'darge sarche ir. Since this is not necessarily in comparison to the level of the needs of the city, that the inhabitants of the city need in actuality. Therefore, he's not the appropriate mayor. They're involved in their own needs. Skip the parentheses. They cannot be involved in matters of the community, of the congregation. And we see this on Pesach as well. The way a Rav will answer Pesach questions for one individual will be different than he will answer it for a different individual. And you can't go ahead and compare your answers and see my neighbor down the street got such an answer from the Rav and I'm getting this answer from the Rav, because this is tailored for you in your particular situation, and the person down the street, that their situation is different, and they may need a different release or heter and way how to deal with their particular situation. Let's skip over further about Moshe and Aharon. Essentially, in the part that we're skipping over, the Rebbe is going to explain that there is the way Moshe looks at things. He's like the Talmud Chacham that doesn't really relate to the people of the city. And Aharon is more related to the people of the city, and he is more on the level of Bnei Yisrael to be able to relate to the Bnei Yisrael. Next page, page 64, the bottom of the page, the last line. Bnei Yisrael b'Mitzrayim l'fnei ha'geula, the Yidden in Mitzrayim, or actually, let's skip over the test, a paragraph before that. Apikol anal yuvan, a point, all this will be understood. Gam also madu ha'yitzias Mitzrayim amiras paras tachodesh adei Moshe v'Aharon. Why was the going on in Mitzrayim? And the telling of the parts of Chodesh, which has all the halachas of the Korban Pesach and how the Yidden will leave Mitzrayim and so on. Why did it have to be through Moshe and Aharon? Bnei Yisrael b'Mitzrayim lifnei ha'geula, the Yidden in Mitzrayim before the redemption, hayu, they were mishubadim ka'avodim leMitzrayim. They were enslaved like servants to the Egyptians. Be'ervas ha'aretz, in the most immoral place in the earth. Goy mikerev goy, they were a nation that had to be taken out from within a nation, meaning they were completely absorbed within the Mitzrayim. Until externally it seemed like in many matters they were similar to the Egyptians. Like it says, like the Malachim said, even at the splitting of the sea, once the Eden went out, they had already offered a Korban Pesach. The Malachim said, why are you saving the Yidden over the Mitzvim? These are serving Avodah Zarah and those are serving Avodah Zarah. If that was the case, even after they left Mitzrayim, even by the splitting of the sea, how much more so it was that way while the Yidden were still in Mitzrayim. Moshe Rabbeinu Omar, even the way Moshe Rabbeinu as well protested and said that the Medrash brings down that Moshe Rabbeinu was concerned as well about them being in such a low state. In Chassidus terminology, that the Yidden were then sunken in the 49 levels of Tumah. To such a degree that it's brought down. If the Yidden would have remained even another moment in Mitzrayim, they wouldn't have been capable of being able to be redeemed, because they would have sunk so low that it would have been impossible to take them out. Yetzias Mitzrayim Hoysab is there. And what was the idea of the taking them out, of going out of Mitzrayim? Even when they were so sunken into the most disgusting part of the land. Malkim Azuma Batuma, the place of filth and purity. From there, the Eibishter in his own very self took them out. Became revealed upon him, the King of Kings, the Eibishter, and redeemed them. And he chose them. He left behind those above and those below. And he did not choose any of them. Neither higher levels, or neither the higher worlds, and neither the higher beings like Malachim, and neither the lower worlds or lower beings. Only one he chose is the Yidden, his nation. And he chose us from all the nations in every language. The Alter Rebbe explains that when we say in the brachas before Krishma, that's referring to the material body, because the material body is something that in its materialism, in its physicality, is similar to the nations of the world's body. And that's where the choice applies. The choice applies by something that there is a similarity. And what did he choose them for? Even though they were similar to those around them, to make him, to bring him close to him in a true closeness, in a true unity, during the giving of the Torah. It's one of the explanations. Why did he didn't have to go through the whole exile in Mitzrayim, which was the most despicable and disgusting place in the land? That the Yidden going through Golus Mitzrayim, they affected a refinement in the physical world, in the material world, and this was preparatory to the giving of the Torah. Because Hashem gave the Torah down here below. In such a manner that should be able to permeate the world. Why does it permeate the world? Like it says in the parsha of the week of that week, when the Rebbe was saying the Sicha, Shmini, to separate between the mundane and the holy, between the pure and the impure. A world that we say about it, that you descended to Egypt. According to this, we could say one of the reasons for the fact that going out of Mitzrayim was through Moshe and Aharon. Moshe Rabbeinu was the one to save the Jewish people by the being a representative and being sent by Hashem. Through Moshe Rabbeinu was affected that Hashem became revealed upon them, the King of Kings. That is going from top down. So to be able to permeate the Bnei Yisrael, the way they were still like amongst and within the bigger nation of the Egyptians. And to such degree, and to such degree that should permeate them, being despite the fact that they are also serving Avodah Zarah. There was a need for it to go through Aaron as well, not just through Moshe. Because Moshe on his own, skip the parentheses, is above Egypt. How much more so than from the fact that he was beyond the world in general, because the level of Moshe Rabbeinu was the level of Torah, and the world awaits in the level of Torah, which is, he speaks about that in the part of Sicha we skip. So that's why Moshe and Aaron had to be there together. Aaron was the one, just like we said, the mayor of the city that needs to know the needs of the city. Aaron could relate to the Bnei Yisrael. Actually, I want to add one more part. Let's actually go back to a previous page. Oops, that was a page forward. Let's go back to the previous page. Page 62. Let's go to the top of the second column, page 62. The difference in Moshe and Aaron is Moshe Iker in Yonah Torah. Moshe's primary thing is Torah. Torah Tzivalonu Moshe, Torah, Moshe commanded us. Zichru Torah Moshe Avdi. Remember the Torah of Moshe, my servant, it says. What does it mean? Remember the Torah of Moshe. That's how much Torah is identified with Moshe, that we're not saying it remember the Torah of Hashem, it says remember the Torah of Moshe. Moshe Enkin Aaron Kohen Gadol Iker in Yonei Avodah, as opposed to Aaron, who is the Kohen Gadol. His main idea is not Torah, but Avodah, the service. Avodah Sakarbanis V'chulu and Mishkan, the service of the Karbanis in the Mishkan. What's the difference between the two? One of the differences between them is because from the perspective of Torah, all matters of the world are to be seen just the way they are in their ideal state in Torah. As opposed to from the perspective of Avodah, they need to descend to the level of the world, the way it's in its place, in its state and situation, but they lost to be able to do over there the avodah according to the directives of the Torah. Torah and mitzvah is similar to what the difference is between learning and action. Torah mitzvahs. Torah is about Hashem's revelation of word that comes down here. Mitzvah is about what we do with the physical world. The Lashon HaMedrash, and the Medrash's expression is Chesed Za'aron ve'emes Za'Moshe. When it says Chesed, it's going on Aaron, and emes it's on Moshe. Inyan Nishul emes, Moshe emes terase emesu. What is the idea of truth? Truth is, and that's what the Moshe and Torah is about. The Roye Kol Inyanim Kefishem Mitzad Amitis Upnimius Hadvarim. All matters he sees the way they're in their truth and their innermost level. Beli Kol Shenuyim, without any change. B'chol Zman B'chol Makom B'Shava, in every place and every situation, every time, it's the same. As opposed to kindness. That what is kindness? Kindness is about doing good and kindness to others. One needs to take consideration the state and situation of each and every one of the receivers. Everyone is different, so you need to take the differences into consideration. The Lashon Chassidus and the language of Chassidus, Moshe Sheshvina de Malka, Moshe is called the Unterführer, the escort of the king. The wedding of the king and the queen, the Hashem and the Jewish people by Matan Torah, was performed through Moshe and Aaron because they were the Unterführers, they were the escorts. Moshe was the escort for the king, that he draws down godliness in Yidden from above to below. This drawing down is not measured according to the vessels of the receiver. He's bringing Hashem to us. Aaron, Aaron, on the other hand, is the Unterführer of the Kala. He is the escort of the queen. He elevates the Yid from below to above. When you're talking about elevating the Bnei Yisrael, over here it's of importance, the state and the situation of the one below that we're elevating. And the level of soul powers, what do they represent? Moshe B'chinas Moshe, Torah Shekadma Lo'olam. Moshe is the level of intellect, the level of Torah that preceded the world, like it says that the world was preceded by Torah by 2,000 years. In other words, completely beyond the world. Aaron, and Aaron on the other hand, B'chinas Chesed, the level of Chesed, HaKoylela, Sheva Midas, that includes in it all the 7 Midas. Makir Shivas Yimei Bereishis, the source of the 7 days of creation, and that's the difference between Moshe and Aaron. Aaron was about the world and evaluating the world from the world's perspective and seeing how to fit that and bring that into the world of Torah. Moshe was the ideal, like we said before. That's why you need to have that. It should be not just Moshe taking the Yidden out of Mitzrayim. It's also necessary to go further and also take the Yidden out of Mitzrayim for their level and to see that it tailors and it has to do with the level of the Yidden themselves. Okay, now we're going to go back to where we were holding out earlier on page 65, Ois Yud. We still need to understand talking how is it possible regardless of the fact that was from within another nation, like we said before, and they were serving Avodah Zarah. Ketainis Moshe Canal, like Moshe Rabbeinu himself also said, "Go Olam Hakadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem redeemed them." How could it be such a thing? Especially in such a way that the Eibishter, the King of Kings, revealed himself upon them in his very glory, in his very essence. So the question is a very interesting thing. It says by Tzis Mitzrayim that Moshe Rabbeinu had to leave the city and daven outside the city to have the Makkah stop. Why? Because it was filled with Avodah Zarah. He couldn't daven over there. Seemingly, even a very, very minor tefillah, Moshe Rabbeinu did not daven within the city because it was filled with Avodah Zarah. When it comes to something as important and as valuable as the Chodesh Zalachem, how much more so would he not be seeing this and having this revealed to him in the city? He would have to go out of the city. So if we see that even when it comes to davening or revealing parts of Torah, it could not be in the Mitzrayim. Hey, how could it be possible? The King of Kings, the Eibishter, in his own glory and self, descended and comes within the land of Mitzrayim, the Ir Mitzrayim, in the city of Mitzrayim, the base Pari b'chol. He came down the house of Pari to kill the firstborn there. So the Rebbe brings that he's going to bring a whole piece from the Rambam. We're going to skip the inside of the Rambam. We'll just stay a little bit outside. That the Rambam of that date, when the Rebbe was saying this, is that if a person marries a woman, that if he knew about any particular defect or blemishes or anything that was untoward, that doesn't undermine the chuppah and kedushin, because if a person thought he was marrying whatever person and really found he's marrying someone else, it could be a problem. But but in a case when we're dealing that if the person knew, then you knew what you were getting into. So let's go to the second paragraph on page 66. So too it's understood concerning the marriage between Hashem and the Jewish people. And the one that marries his nation Yisrael with chuppah and kedushin, b'yitzias Mitzrayim or Matan Torah. Both when they went out of Mitzrayim and both when Matan Torah is considered the marriage of Hashem, the Jewish people. He tells his words to Yankov and his laws and statutes to the Yidden. What he does, he tells others to do. Since even before Hashem married the Bnei Yisrael, even before the Yidden went to Gals Mitzrayim, Hashem knew about the defects, the blemishes that the Yidden would receive in Mitzrayim while being amongst the other nation, serving Avodah Zarah, etc. Hashem knows the future. And he knows what's concealed. And he sees ahead of time what's going to be afterwards. Still know Hashem promised Avram Avinu in the covenant between the parts. Afterwards they will go out with great wealth. That he will marry the Yidden. The marriage is valid. Despite the blemishes that the Yidden have, even severe blemishes. The Seder is even more so. Let's skip the parenthesis. Let's skip this paragraph. Let's go to the next paragraph. So too it's concerning Hashem. Since he knew prior about the blemishes that Eden would receive when they're in Mitzrayim. Harizaraya Sharata Shia came. This is a proof that he wanted this to be so. Like it's explained in many places. Shekol Inyan Habmumin Bog Mithazeh Shakadosh Baruch Hu Noira Lila Bnei Adam. It's only because of the great plot and scheme that Hashem planned on the Eden and man that there would be an idea of Avedis. And the will of Hashem was that there should be things that are the opposite of his will. So it should be added in addition to the avoid of tzaddikim, also the advantage of the avoid of tshuva. This is his true will. The Chazal say, in a place where Baal Tshuva stands, all tzaddikim, complete tzaddikim can't stand over there, until they can't even, they're not even able to stand over there. Therefore, regardless of all the blemishes and all the concealments in the most disgusting place in the land, there becomes the marriage between the Yidden and Hashem, and and a complete marriage, the everlasting marriage, forever and ever, in such a way that they are becoming like one flesh, Yidden Hashem entirely one. The shleimus will be golden, begula mitzvah shlema, the Mashiach Tzidkenu, like it will be complete and revealed in the true and complete redemption from Mashiach. We know that like your days going on in the land of Mitzrayim, I'll show you wonders. So the same thing going to be then. One of the lessons we could derive from this, the idea that Hashem takes out one nation from within another nation, this is the birth of Am Yisrael. Just like a child is born, he's taken out one person, comes out of another person. So that's repeated every year in the days of Pesach, because since it's the birthday of Am Yisrael on Pesach, so therefore every Pesach we are also celebrating the birthday of, and we're marking and we're experiencing the birthday of Klal Yisrael. How much more so are we experiencing this? When we find ourselves in Golos. The Kol HaGolias in the Christ Hashem Mitzrayim, all the Golias are called by the name of Mitzrayim. So yes, there's a lesson. Even when a Yid finds himself in the double and quadruple darkness of exile, and he thinks that some untoward things, negative things, stuck to him from the Golos, and he believes and thinks, how can I become redeemed from this? He could feel down about it. He has to know that Hashem heard and he wanted, which is quoting the Rambam that we skipped earlier. HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yedem Mikol Hamumim, Hashem knows of all the defects. Adrabe, Bnei Yisrael Nimtzon Begolos B'Tzayin HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Yidden are found in exile by the will of Hashem. HaKadosh Baruch Hu Ratza Sheyiu B'Matzav V'Heichen Sheyesh Afsharis L'Mumin. Hashem wanted they should be in such a situation and in such a place that there's a possibility for defects. Mekiv HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yedei Avmezeh V'Roitze B'Zeh. Since Hashem knows of this and wants this, Hareza Rayish Nimtzu B'Yachtem Bnei Yisrael Gam Begolos B'Oifen Shel the Kedushin. So this is a proof that he finds himself together with the Yidden, also in Golos, and the way that he's married to us. V'Kavana Da Golos, the intention and purpose of the Golos, He B'Chdeish Bnei Yisrael Yivaru V'Yizachu Agashmis V'Chumris Ha'olam V'Pe'aros HaTorah. It's so that the Yidden should refine the physicality and materialism of the world according to the directives of the Torah, lahavdu bein hakodesh ubein hachoil, to separate between holy and mundane, al derech k'may avodas Aharon, similar to the avodah of Aharon. Legalus the aleph alufish aloylom sheyesh negam begalus, and to reveal the aleph of the master of the world that's also to be found in Golus, because when you add, like we always know in the word goyla, we add the word aleph, so we turn it into geula. And to such a degree, you make the world into a Torah world. First and foremost, how does this happen? Through not being affected and not getting excited and put off by the tests of the Golus. But just the opposite. The Golus inspires them an even stronger connection with Hashem. Idea limit Torah v'kiyam mitzvahs through the study of Torah and performance of mitzvahs. We could say another matter. Hayom Miledas the Chol Yehudi, the birthday of every Yid. It's similar to the birthday of Klal Yisrael when they went out of Mitzrayim. Just like when the Yid went out of Mitzrayim, a nation was taken out from within a nation. This is what I mentioned before. So too, in the birth of every Yid, in the state where he was in gestation, impregnated. He was in a state of pregnancy within his mother's womb. Noilad, he was born Lametzias with Neatzma, as a separate existence. Shem Yitzias Mitzrayim, or Ladas Klal Yisrael, or Alderech Ha'inyan Davos HaTshuva, just like Yitzias Mitzrayim, the birth of Klal Yisrael is similar to the service of Tshuva. Shenigolim and Matzav the Ket of Goy, we've come redeemed from such a situation of being within another nation. So too it has to be by each and every one by his birthday. Like we've spoken about lately. In other words, the Rebbe is now talking about going back that year. Tavshim Mem Ches was when the Rebbe introduced the Miftzah Yom Haledos, and he spoke about it in the Sicha of the Rebbetzins Yom Haledos and Chafei Yodon. He spoke about it in Shabbos Parts Vayikra, and then he will speak about it. This is a Sicha from Erev Pesach, Aharon Shal Pesach. The Rebbe would speak about it at great length. That it's appropriate that everybody should begin to use their birthday as a day to increase in goodness and holiness, Torah, mitzvahs, kulu, etc. And according to what we said above, we can say one of the reasons why lately did this become a directive for everybody. This is made well known. Why just recently is this so? Though in generations prior to our generation, the fact of celebrating a birthday was only by special people and without making a big tumult about it. Even since we find ourselves at the conclusion of Golus, we have to conclude and finish all the final refinements of mundane matters and weekday matters. Yes, and we can say one of the refinements that we are doing in this world is that a Yid uses out his birthday. A birthday on its own is a regular weekday. He reveals how his mazel is in ascendancy. That the mazel of a Yid is the level of ayin, like it says, there is no mazel for the Yid, and we say ayin mazel Yisrael means that the ayin, that which is from which the yesh comes from, is the mazel for the Yid. Inyan abitul, that's the mazel of a Yid. Ayin the yesh hamiti, until the ayin of the true yesh, meaning the Hashem that creates us, he's called the ayin of our world. And his birthday reveals his own ayin, his bittul. With that ayin, he overpowers his ego and his existence. So it's a merit, this means to say, even the way he finds himself as an existence of a yesh down here below. Like Aharon was taking us the way we're down here below. And he called Mitziyusai, the tail of Ayin LaKadosh Baruch Hu, his entire being is nullified and as an Ayin to Hashem, Maven, and he understands V'Hashem Margish until he feels and senses Echshorshu Ayin Amiti, how is rooted the true Ayin. The will of Hashem, the final refinements of the mundane, the weekday, and the time of Golus. Will speedily reveal the Aleph of the Master of the world in the Golus for Nasa Geula, it becomes the redemption. Geula mitzvah shlema the Mashiach that came to the true complete redemption from Mashiach. Nachher Chag Pesach with the Shalim and Kodesh, we will celebrate the Yom Tov Pesach in the Shalim, the holy city, Beis Hamikdash, in the third Beis Hamikdash. The Yach the Moshe V'Aaron and Moim, along with Moshe V'Aaron with them. The Yach the Kids of Anan Shech Ne'afar, along with those that are resting in the ground, will awaken and they will sing. He will not delay them even for an eye blink.
Oh man, that's plan A.